Dr. Prakash Sancheti.
So it is live now, and if we want, we can start our class.
Okay, should I start?
Yes.
Okay. In one of the last classes, somebody wanted me to speak on this topic of evolution, particularly in Jain context. But I have a talk today where I will touch both aspects, the scientific as well as the Jain views. I think we had a brief discussion on this in one of the regular classes, evolution part, but that was a very brief introduction to the subject. So what we'll do today is to go in little details about what are the scientific aspect of evolution and what are the Jain views on evolution. In fact, these two views are entirely different, different views. Scientific view of evolution and Jain view of evolution are different things, but we'll try to find the connection between these two and also try to understand the scientific views in terms of Jain concepts. We start with the scientific findings. So the data which is given here probably is a repetition for you, but I'll go through it very quickly. We know that the age of Earth is 4.54 billion years. And the process of evolution has left behind numerous records which reveal history of different species on Earth. And these records are in the form of fossils and also genetic records. And if you go through the evolutionary history as explored by science, we find that the life remained almost unicellular for the first from the first recorded fossils at 3.5 billion years ago. So this is the oldest fossil we have on Earth, which has been discovered. And to the first well-documented multicellular animals less than 600 million years ago. Around 3 billion years ago, oxygenic photosynthesis emerged. A process, photosynthesis, which is very important for life to exist on Earth, And this process started something like 3 billion years ago. About 2 billion years ago, oxygen-rich atmosphere emerged, which was necessary for aerobic cellular respiration. Many of the living beings need respiration, and this process started something like 2 billion years ago. In the last billion years, simple multicellular plants and animals began to appear in the oceans. The life first appeared in oceans, And about 500 million years ago, plants and fungi colonized the land and were soon followed by arthropods and other animals, leading to the development of land ecosystems. Soon after the emergence of the first animals, the Cambrian explosion, which spanned about 5 million years, it saw the creation of all the major body plants, phyla, and modern animals. Humans were last to appear on Earth about 250,000 years ago. And if you want to have a look at the evolution history, this figure shows the evolution history, you find that, the earth was produced somewhere here, and the moon was produced there. And then, the atmospheric oxygen began to appear somewhere here. And the eukaryotes, the first life which was produced was prokaryotes, somewhere here, prokaryotes, the single cell life. And then the eukaryotes, which is the multicellular life, eukaryotes were produced here something like 2 billion years ago. And then we find that, let me see my cursor here. Yes. Okay. The corals were developed somewhere here. Then this is the period of Cambrian explosion, somewhere 600 million years ago, where most of the animals were developed, or they were evolved according to science. And the first big animal developed was fish. And that was followed by this shark, and then reptiles in the form of dinosaurs and so on. Then came birds somewhere here, and then followed by mammals, and then flowers and bees somewhere here. And the bees were, were essential living beings for agriculture, So the agriculture developed only after bees somewhere here. And then, of course, so this shows in brief the major development of evolution history. This shows the Cambrian period, Cambrian period and afterwards. So this is the Cambrian period, which began about 600 million years ago. And then it shows how the animals were formed, First chordates were formed here, then the first fishes, excuse me. Then jaws species were developed here, then the amphibians were developed here, then the reptiles, excuse me, then the reptile diversity and so on. Dinosaurs were developed here at this time, followed by mammals. Then birds came, and then the flowering plants and bees, as I said. Excuse me. And then, this period shows the diversity of mammals, different types of mammals were evolved. And lastly, the human beings. So this shows the history since the Cambrian period. Now the question is, how do you explain this kind of development which took place on Earth? So there are two kinds of scientific theories. The first is how the life originated. That is the first thing to decide. And secondly, how the species were evolved. So these two questions have to be answered. How the first life, which is supposed to consist of a molecule or a cell, came into being, and how these different species were evolved. And this is the scientific view. So theories have been proposed, to explain this phenomena. Abiogenesis, I think you had it in the last class also, in the regular class. How the cell is developed in an evolutionary process. The cell is a big unit, The smaller unit is a monomer. It's a small molecule of atoms or chemicals. So it has been recognized that life developed in 3 stages. Life means cell as far as science is concerned. First, the monomers were formed, smaller molecules. Then from that, polymers, the bigger biological molecules developed. And lastly, the cell came into being. And this has been approved in the laboratory also. There is a famous Miller-Urey experiment. I think this was talked of in the regular class. So I will not go into the details of this. These experiments only showed that the things can be produced naturally. The monomers are produced naturally. And then from monomers, the polymers are produced, and then the cell is developed. This is a very long process. It's not very simple one. Then there are other theories, exogenesis and panspermia, which I think you know about that. This is about the origin of life. The question is evolution, how different kinds of forms or different kinds of animals have developed on Earth. And to explain this, Darwin proposed a theory in 1859 known as the Darwin's theory of natural selection. The Darwin study concentrated or focused on population, how the population is growing. So he said that despite having enormous potential of fertility, the population of an organism remains within limit. And he explained this. It is due to struggle between members of the same species as well as different species for food, space, mating, etc. These are the processes which control the population. Struggle eliminates the unfit individuals, and the fit organisms possess some variations which are favorable, and they leave the progeny to continue the favorable variations. So this is how the species were developed. The variation, when accumulated for the first time, gives rise to the origin of new species. This is how Darwin explained his theory. And he called it the theory of natural selection, or in other words, survival of the fittest. Then there is another theory put forward by Hugo. It's a mutation theory. And according to him, new species were not found by continuous variation, but arose due to sudden appearance of variations, which he called mutation. Excuse me. He stated that mutations are heritable and persist in successive generations. So he stated this on the basis of experiments carried by him on prime rose. So his experiments were rather limited to a particular species, prime rose. And then based on this study, he generalized his theory and he put forward this mutation theory. Then another gentleman, Lamarck, he said that the organisms altered their behavior in response to environmental change. Their changed behavior in turn modified their organs, and their offspring inherited those improved structures. For example, he cited an example to support his theory. He said the giraffes developed their elongated neck and front legs by generations of browsing on high tree leaves. So the exercise of stretching up to the leaves altered the neck and legs. This is how the neck got elongated and legs became longer. And their offspring inherited these acquired characteristics. So he gave importance to behavioral aspects of evolution. So Lamarck believed that living things evolved in a continuous upward direction from dead matter through simple to more complex forms of life. There are certain questions which have been posed even by scientists as far as these theories are concerned. First, let us look at the Darwin's theory. So the first question or the objection to Darwin's theory is that the theory robs life and the universe of any transcendental meaning of life. This is an important point. And then the second point is that the natural selection is not fully sufficient to explain evolutionary change. And there are reasons for this. Number one, many other causes are powerful besides natural selection, particularly at the level of biological organization. And second, no matter how adequate our general theory of evolutionary changes, we also want to understand the actual pathways of life history. The life history, which we just discussed a little while ago. And according to that, there were 3 billion years of unicellularity. For 3 billion years, life was in the form of a single cell, followed by 5 million years of intense creativity and more than 500 million years of variations on set anatomical themes. So the diversity which we see today developed only in a few hundred million years, whereas for billions of years, it was unicellular. How do you explain this? Organisms adapt to and are constrained by physical principles, but these do not tell us why we have different species, why insects rule the multicellular world, and why vertebrates exist as the most complex forms of life. These questions are not answered. The modern theory nowadays, the theory which is believed regarding evolution is the synthetic evolution theory or modern theory of synthetic evolution. And it is a combination of Darwinian theory and genetics, because genetics is now common and is popular. And this theory is also called population that leads to the formation of new species. So genetics becomes important now. It also describes the genetic population, gene pool, gene frequency. All these terms are biological terms, and I am not going to go into details of this. And the other concepts which are relevant to evolutionary aspect is genetic variation, reproductive and geographical isolation, natural selection, and so on. Now, one important theory which is important to my mind is the information theory, which has been applied to biology. This is very important. No, it studies genes in a different manner. Genetic code has information. So there are two things. One is genetic code, another is information. The two are not same, The amount of information in the DNA of even this single cell bacterium E. coli is vast. E. coli is a bacterium. And if you look at the DNA of E. coli and the information contained in that DNA is very, very large, It is greater than the information contained in the books of any of the world's largest library. So you imagine the amount of information contained in the DNA. And the sequence of nucleotides in DNA code is like the letters in a written language. So the written language and the information the language conveys are the two different things. The sequence of letter in the DNA of E. coli is very specific, and only that particular sequence is capable of biological function. So this theory, has greatly narrowed the question of life's origin. It's a question of intelligence coming in here. And it says that the order with low information content does arise by natural process. However, there is no convincing argument or evidence that order with high information content can also arise by natural process. So naturally, you can have a living being which requires only very small amount of information. But as even a bacteria, is such a large amount of information, that it is impossible for a bacteria to develop naturally. So the only evidence we have is that it takes intelligence to produce the second kind of order, that is the order with high information content. So there is intelligence needed. And what is the source of intelligence is the question. So, so if you want to speculate how the first informational molecule came into being, that how the first cell came into being, so the most reasonable speculation is that there was some form of intelligence around that time. Without intelligence, cell could not be produced. This is a very important inference here. Therefore, life itself is prima facie evidence that some form of intelligence was in existence at the origin of DNA code. So, this is a very important point and supports Jain philosophy, as we will see later. The material base of message is completely independent of information it transmits. The two different things. So a DNA is a code of certain chemical molecules. It's only a code. But that code does not constitute information. The information that code carries is entirely different. For example, just you take an example, you write 4-letter word love, L-O-V-E, love. So it's only 4 letters, but the meaning it conveys is entirely different. Your love has a meaning, you love your parents, you love your children, love your family, and so on. So the information that 4-letter word conveys is entirely different from the constitution of that word, physical constitution of the word. This is what it says, that the DNA code is different from the information the DNA carries. Now, we come to the Jain philosophical perspective of evolution history. Jain philosophy is entirely different. It has entirely different concept, It looks at life at the locus scale, not on any particular planet like Earth. So in the entire loc, there are 84 million yonis, that you have discovered, you have read earlier also. So the Jain philosophy says that, look here, all forms of life exist in loc all the time. And no new form of life can be created, or no new yonis can be formed. All yonis exist in the loc at some place in the loc. We do not know where, and therefore there is nothing like creation. So it's a Jain philosophy discards the view of creation, even the creation of a yoni. Creation of life is something different. So now the question which we are discussing is how the life evolved on Earth. So the first thing is that we have to recognize that the Earth was formed. Jain scriptures do not mention this kind of fact, that the Earth was formed or Jambudvip was formed. It doesn't say anything on that. But as you know that, the Pudgal or the matter is not a permanent structure. The structure of a Pudgal is transforming continuously, there is a continuous change. And therefore, we expect that, even if there is a planet or a star-like thing, a Graha and Surya, then these things are not permanent, because there is a transformation going on continuously. So sometime, it will come to an end. And therefore, new planet can also be produced, a new sun can be produced. And therefore, we accept that the Earth was produced. Earth came into being at a certain point in time. And so this we had to accept and recognize. So the question is, when the Earth was formed, how the life began on Earth and how the different diverse species have been created or developed. So what we start with Sukshma Nigodh Jeev. So Jain philosophy says that the Sukshma Nigodh Jeev are present all over Lok. Okay? And therefore, they were also present on the earth when it was formed. So the life starts with the Sukshma Nigodh Jeev, as far as we are concerned. So the question to be addressed is that how various species were born on earth starting from Sukshma Nigodh Jeev, because this was there even at the time of formation of earth. And the Jain philosophy says that if a suitable yoni is available, then a jeev from somewhere in the lok will come and take birth here. The question is, the yoni must be available. And how many types of yonis described here? And that I think you have learned in the earlier class also. But what I want to emphasize here is that the common body plants and the solitary body plants, these are Badar Nigodji, and they have a Samurchan birth according to Jain philosophy. And these Stavar Jiva, earth body, water body, fire body, and air body, they are Stavar Jiva, immobile beings, and they are different kind of, they are Sukshma. Then we have two sense beings, three sense beings, four sense beings. All these three types they are considered as insects, So they come into the category of insects. And according to Jain philosophy, these also have a Samurchan birth. Then, of course, there are five sense animals of the various types: aquatic, birds, terrestrial, and so on, and the reptiles. Then human beings, informal beings, and celestial beings, the number given here. Then the 84 lakh yonis, 8.4 million types of yonis, and they always exist in the lok somewhere. And out of these various forms, the fishes, reptile, and birds are oviparous. They have egg birth, and the terrestrial animals and humans have uterine birth. This we know from science. What is yoni? That must be understood first, So it has been said now, the yoni is उत्पत्ति स्थान जहाँ एक शरीर का नाश होने पर नए शरीर की रचना के लिए जिन पुद्गलों का ग्रहण और कार्बन शरीर के साथ मिश्रण होता है वो योनि है. So yoni is a mixture of various types of material, pudgal, and the karman sharir. And karman sharir, is associated with soul. So the soul has to combine with pudgal in order to produce life. And the karman sharir is also material entity. So everything is pudgal here. So yoni then consists of a pudgal with which the karman sharir mixes. So yoni is a material structure like cell with DNA, where the soul of a particular species enters. So yoni must be available, and the soul enters that yoni. Okay. So there are, say for example, human species are of different kinds of variations. On Earth, we know the variations like Caucasian, Mangalore, Negro, they are different variations as far as human beings are concerned. But, the Jain philosophy says that the human beings also vary from planet to planet, So we don't have all the kinds of human beings which are present in the loka on Earth, So the Earth has a very limited variation or kinds of species of human beings. The body of plants, which are Badar Nigodh Jiva, and insect, is formed in open environment. It is a samurchana, okay? And is formed from locally available material. So the regular yoni of plants is seed, and that of insect is air, of course. But samurchan birth is possible from the locally available material. In higher animals, the body grows in a controlled environment. In oviparous animals, the egg provides the right environment. And in other animals, in human, the womb provides the required environment for growth. Now, if you look at the Sukshma Nigodh Jeev, the Sukshma Nigodh Jeev, it is said that, all three bodies, that is the Tejas Sharir, the Karman Sharir, and the Audarik Sharir, they are all made of Sukshma Nigodh Vargana. Okay, only one type of Vargana makes all these three bodies in the case of Sukshma Nigodh Jeev. And therefore, these jivas, they don't have a DNA structure, they don't require oxygen. The Sukshma Nigodh Jiva are found all over Loka, where even the oxygen is not there. So they don't need oxygen for living. For birth of another form of life, a suitable yoni is required, as I said. So the question is how the yoni is made. If the yoni is available, the birth will take place. On availability of yoni, the jiva would take birth. It will come from somewhere in the loka. The question is, according to science, how the first cell was made. Jain's philosophy supports the information theory, which says that it requires intelligence to produce a DNA structure. It requires intelligence to produce a life of a order of high information content. So the material makeup of DNA does not decide information it carries, I said. The source of information, the DNA is the source. So the information theory supports the Jain view that, look here, DNA itself is not sufficient for life. You require intelligence, and the intelligence is the property of the soul, and therefore soul is required. So information is supposed to be a function of the intelligence expressed in the soul of a jiva. How much information the soul will have or the particular species will have depend upon the intelligence expression. So the information is related to intelligence. So that gives us a basis for reclassifying the living beings. I'll go through that. So on the basis of Jain philosophy, we say that the birth of new species is driven by following forces. These are the criteria or the conditions required for new species to be born. Number one, natural forces must be there. The formation of suitable yonis. The material structure must be formed. So that requires natural forces, in a particular suitable kind of environment. Then intelligence. Intelligence is required, and therefore soul is required. And this resides the information expressed in the body, expected to be stored in the non-coding part of DNA. Where is the intelligence stored? In DNA, then it is the non-coding part. This is DNA contains two divisions. One is the coding part, another is the non-coding part. The coding part codes for the protein generation or the protein formation, and the non-coding part is supposed to contain information. And then, of course, it required a suitable environmental conditions for food and other survival aspects. So based on intelligence scale, I am now going to reclassify the living beings. This is a new kind of classification besides what is given in our literature. So I go from the low intelligence content to higher. The lowest intelligence content is of the Sukshma Nigodh Jeev. These jeeves have the least intelligence and therefore least information. They survive without oxygen. Their bodies are subtle. They do not have a DNA structure. Then the Badar-Nigoz Jeev, okay? These Jeev have Karman body and Tejas body made up of Badar-Nigoz Vargana. These jivas include earth body, water body, air body, and fire body beings, all vegetation and plants. They are Badar Nigoz Jiva. Remember, Nigoz Jiva is classified as Vanaspati in Jain philosophy. Okay? And the explicit intelligence of plants is more than that of other four forms, that is, the earth body, water body, etc. And but the plants are also immobile, and they are grouped in the same class because they are immobile. Then insects, which are 2 sense to 4 sense beings, these are insects. And they have a higher intelligence and therefore a higher amount of information because their karmas are little less as compared to plants and vegetation. But they also have Samurchan type of birth, as far as Jain philosophy is concerned. All insects are born by Samurchan birth. So these are mobile jivas and have a structure of eukaryotic type. Plants have a prokaryotic structure, and these insects have a eukaryotic structure. Bacteria is small, is the simplest single cell animal or living being. Then insects like worms, ants, mosquito, fly, etc., 2 to 4 sense beings, they all have multicellular body, and they are known as invertebrates as far as science is concerned. And then we have a different categories, 5 sense animals with mind. These are vertebrate animals, and 3 types: terrestrial, aquatic, aerial. And they include reptiles and quadrupeds. They have brain, and these animals have maximum variety. Then, of course, the highest intelligence being is the human being. So they have the highest intelligence and therefore the highest amount of information contained in the DNA. So they have a 5 sense being and mind and the highest explicit intelligence. And their brain is more developed than other 5 sense animals. Now, having known this kind of classification, I am now trying to explain how the evolution which took place on Earth can be explained in terms of Jain philosophy. So it's a kind of explanation which we are offering to the observed phenomena. Remember that. So in the first stage, the change from to Badar Nigoz Jiva, from Sukshma Nigoz Jiva. The Sukshma Nigoz Jiva is already there on the first time the earth was made, And so the first change is from Sukshma Nigoz Jiva to Badar Nigoz Jiva in the form of Vanaspati. How this happened? This is what we are trying to explain. So the Sukshma Nigoz Jiva present on earth take birth as earth body and water body Jiva. This is Sukshma Nigoz. These jivas experience the consequences of their karma with the passage of time, and their karmas are reduced and the intelligence level is increased. Now, as the karmas are reduced, the explicit intelligence level goes up. The rate of decrease of karma is very slow, but in the time span of billions of years, the jiva became eligible for birth as Vanaspati, which has a higher information content. So it took billions of years, and it took 3 billion years, in order that, the first cell was produced or the Vanaspati was produced. In this mode, a jiva needs a yoni made up of a gross matter. So Vanaspati, even if it's a single cell, you need a cell, how the cell was developed. So this is the explanation. Sometime during this long interval of time, which is billions of years, monomers were produced, and this was sourced by laboratory experiments. that the monomers can be produced naturally. So monomers were produced in that period in nature. And then from monomer, in the absence of cell, the G makes this as yoni. So the monomers or monomer was the first kind of yoni, from Sukshma onwards. The monomers was a yoni. And there may be many jivas in this stage of development. Now suppose that the body has left, now how the bigger yoni is produced. Now suppose that the body left by one jiva is made yoni by another jiva. Okay? Then that yoni has a structure, material structure, now becomes initial life, So this jiva, in its attempt to develop, would try to improve the structure of the body. So now the development goes on. A new kind of structure will develop over a period of time, very slowly. As this process continues, the monomer structure is converted into polymer structure and finally into prokaryotic cell. So the production of cell, which took 3 billion years, because the intelligence level slowly increased as the karmas were deleted or annihilated. This stage came. So this stage developed in billions of years. So this stage of activity on Earth lasted about 3 billion years, and the body in this period was unicellular. Then once the cell is produced, it's a big development or big advancement as far as life is concerned, because cell is a replicating device. It can replicate and very quickly produce a body. So cell was a replicating device, and this was produced by intelligence of soul. So the information theory is correct that when the cell was produced, there was some intelligence, and we know that intelligence was because of the soul. And with the availability of a cell as a yoni, vegetation could take birth, and multicellular body as per design of the Nam Karma could be made. Once a cell is made, then it multiplies, and a multicellular body can be produced by Nam Karma. And the Nam Karma is the one, which constructs the body, as we know. So the history of Earth shows that the life first developed in oceans, which provided suitable environment to G. With prokaryotic cell, suitable yoni was good for vegetation and plants, So the vegetation and plant first developed in the oceans, which formed, and Jiva was able to take birth in several forms of vegetation and plants in oceans. And then, of course, later in lakes on the lake. So the reproduction of these species, of course, was with seeds, but the first yoni was created by Samurchan process. In the second stage of development, then from the vegetation, we come to the insects, the eukaryotic structure, So this again took time, millions of years, from prokaryotic cell to eukaryotic, the multicellular beings, which provided suitable yoni for two sense beings. So what happens, the yoni left by a G is made a yoni by another G. So that the material structure is available in the form of that yoni, the dead body, So that body becomes the place where the soul enters, and makes a suitable life. So this is the first time. Afterwards, of course, there is the process take place, as we know. So at this stage, bacteria and virus related to plants were born. First, bacteria was born, and virus was born related to plants, because the plants developed first in the oceans. And this is the beginning of mobile life on Earth as unicellular form. Further development was possible by the ability of G to modify gene structure, and with the improved gene structure, a suitable for multi-sense mobile G was possible. So slowly the structure changes and a new yoni is developed. And so the worms came into existence, 2 sense beings, and then 3 sense beings and 4 sense beings. So insects were developed. And I have given an example here. For example, the dead plant makes the yoni for first bacteria. The body of dead bacteria makes a yoni for first worm. The body of dead worm makes a yoni for first ant-like being. So this is how the natural available structure is utilized by soul to take birth. And the body of a big ant, a yoni, then produced something like a mosquito. So the yoni develops slowly and slowly, and a new life comes into being. The bodies of all above forms of life, classified as insects, is made of suitable material available locally, submersion, as I said, and afterwards, of course, it takes place biologically. And the timeline of evolutionary history shows that the arthropods were followed by plants. The process of development is slow till this stage, as the explicit intelligence of the jiva is at low level. In the next stage, when the jiva has 5 senses, the intelligence level has a quantum jump, and the process of development becomes fast, as was observed in the Cambrian period. So the Cambrian explosion, as was seen by scientists according to the fossil records, is because then that the intelligence level also has a jump, it jumps to a higher level when from insects to animals, the mammals. So if this is done, the intelligence level goes up, the information level goes up, and because the higher intelligence, the development becomes faster. So all these animals, which are mammals, these animals are born in a controlled environment. Even the insects, the first insect is born some motion type, but later on, it takes birth from one living being will give, it leaves eggs, and then from eggs, there is a birth and so on. That process we know biological. Possibly a small fish making dead body is of a developed type of insect. So how the fish was developed, the idea could be that, an insect of developed kind of big insects, probably made the first yoni for small fish. And then, of course, fishes, lay eggs and the further growth that goes on. The question is how the first time is developed. Oceans cover a large part of Earth, and the environment conditions vary with location. So different types of fishes evolved in different oceans and lakes. Birth of next generation of fishes is mainly through eggs and so on. And we know that the fishes are also food for fish, So this motivated fishes to develop safety and security features for survival and resulted in changes in the size and shape of the body. This is how the different bodies develop, and also the new species in Earth, in ocean. And the intelligence level also goes up as this process takes place. And we know the fishes do not have legs. So in the next stage, legs were developed in the fish body, and the reptile was born. And the reptiles can move, they could move out of water, and therefore that gave rise to ecosystem on land. The land ecosystem was developed because of reptiles, which moved from water to earth. And this was the beginning of amphibians that gave rise to animals on land. This is how the animals produced on land. Further development on land was guided by availability of food and environment conditions. So new kinds of yonis were developed, and jiva took birth as different animal species. In the absence of much change in the intelligence level, the development was fast, and a large number of animal species were born in the Cambrian explosion period. Humans came last, as far as history is known. So something like 250,000 to 300,000 years ago. So the question is how the first human was born. That's a very difficult question to answer. So it's very difficult to say how the humans developed from animals, because the animals existed at that time. So it's not possible that humans were developed from animals. Excuse me. Perhaps some subspecies preceded the modern humans. So our predecessors were of something different kind. We are Homo sapiens, but before that, some other kinds of species of human being probably existed on Earth. And this is the scientific records, the evolutionary signposts, that help in understanding the emergence of humans and how the humans were developed. The strong evidence supports the branching of human lineage from one that produced great apes. This is what science says, the humans came from apes. And great apes, they call it chimpanzees and so on, bonobos and so on. And they lived in Africa somewhere 6 and 7 million years ago. And there are tool-making dates, this is the archaeological discoveries. 3.3 million years ago, tool-making species existed. However, the age of the oldest remains of genus Homo is younger than this, and dating back to about 2.8 to 2.75 million years ago in Ethiopia. So Ethiopia was the land where probably the first human was born, according to science. And the oldest known remains of Homo sapiens is about 315,000 years ago. This is what the people speculate, this is how the different kinds of human beings developed, The first human probably was of this kind. This is a speculation, and then the next kind of human being, the next kind, this is the Neanderthals, which probably there are evidences this kind of human being existed on Earth, there are fossil evidences of Neanderthals, and then Homo sapiens, our kind of human beings developed in the last. That is, the idea is that probably some different kind of human species existed before us. So if you now look at the various theories, the scientific theories and the intelligence theory, which I just now described, which is we evaluate, which fits better. So if you look at the theories, the Darwin theory, for example, the Darwin theory says that the evolution is driven by heritable traits. What are the heritable traits? The physical traits are not heritable. The physical traits are only heritable. I'm sorry. The behavioral traits are not heritable. Your behavior is different from your father. Your son or your daughter will have a different behavior than what you are, and so on. So behavior is not inherited. The physical features or the physical traits are inherited. So Darwin theory, which is based on physical traits, should not explain how the different species were born, because the species are not born on the basis of physical traits, but the behavioral traits. This is more important, which is not described with Darwin theory. With superior traits has a better chance of survival. This is physical. Then the population of inferior traits is given in mind. So the physical traits do not describe. These are all physical traits. The real traits of individual are behavioral traits, which are not heritable, as I said, The survival of an individual or population depends more on behavior rather than the physical traits. So how can the Darwin's theory of natural selection or the survival of the fittest can explain evolution? This is the question. Then Hugo's theory. The Hugo's theory, was based on very limited experiments on prime rows, He studies only prime rows, the plants, and that cannot be applied to more intelligent beings, which are mainly guided by the behavioral traits. So even the mutation theory of Hugo is questionable, because it describes only physical traits. So also Lamarck theory, of course, this says that the environmental change is supposed to cause the different kinds of species, but that also is physical heritable traits which is it's focusing, and therefore causes evolution according to that in which is questionable. So all these theories are questionable, but the intelligence theory which I just now described to you in the light of Jain philosophy is based on soul, how the soul takes place first on the earth in the form of Sukshma Jiva, then the yoni is developed suitable for plants, then the plants are produced, then yoni is suitable for insects is developed, and then the insects are produced, and then the yoni is suitable to animals is produced, and then the animals are produced, and so on. And this theory then explains, better the evolutionary trend which is observed on Earth. So I stop here, and I want to summarize that, the Jain theory, we are better with this theory, we are in a better position to explain the evolution which has actually taken place on Earth. Thank you. If there are questions, I'll try to answer. Image is there.
I was also engaged in some lecture. There was one lecture, so I I was not present from beginning, but yes. So all the participants are requested to have any question or to ask any question regarding this topic, which is very interesting, and Professor Kachhara has explained the evolution theory in the light of scientific all studies, and we have seen that how Jainism has given something advanced in this field. So if somebody has any question, they can ask.
Nami Naman Sami Samniji. I have one
Yes.
question.
Yes, you can ask.
So, Dr. Kachhara, what I understand from your lecture is the human soul existed since the beginning. It always has existed. But we didn't see humans appear on Earth because a suitable yoni was not available for that soul to inherit. Is that right?
Yes, a soul will take birth, when a yoni is available. That point is clear. A suitable yoni must be available.
So that would also mean that there are other places in the lok where humans do exist, but on Earth it took time because the conditions were not right for that yoni to be suitable for human birth.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So all 84 million, 8.4 million yonis exist in the loka somewhere, okay? And no new yoni is developed according to Jainism. This is the total variation which is possible. The question is, wherever a suitable yoni is available, then according to karma, a soul will take birth.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I have one query with the Professor Kachhara.
Yes.
Okay, so you were saying that the sukshma, what we say, subtle living beings who are one sensed and spread throughout the universe, they don't need breathing.
Yes.
But without fourth paryapti, that is the respiratory system, no living being can be said as a living being. And according to Jain scriptures, all living beings are breathing from three direction or four or five or six.
Yes.
It means all those subtle living beings who are even in the corner of the universe or in the end of the universe, they are also taking it according to the Bhagavati Sutra.
That's right. That's right. But the Sukshmanigo Jeev,
Yes.
uh, the respiration has to be defined for that. The respiration does not mean intake of oxygen, not necessarily.
Yeah, that's why I was also thinking that suppose in moksha, also in liberation, there is no plants and trees, so how they are getting oxygen?
No,
But
there is no
there is
oxygen.
earth-bodied, there is earth-bodied living beings, no? Earth-bodied living beings.
Yeah, they don't need oxygen.
But what in what sense they are breathing?
I do not know, but I think most probably, breathing means taking material inside, and that is in the form of Tejas Vargana and Karman Vargana. The particularly Tejas Vargana, that is also being breathed in. The breathing is connected to prana process. And the pranas they consist of Tejas Vargana. So there is a continuous input of Tejas Vargana. Even in a Sukshma Nigodh Ji. So
Okay.
probably that could be considered as a breathing.
One thing more I want to know that what is Swachwas Vargana, whether it is oxygen or some other elements or material which is being used as Swachwas.
Swachusas Vargana is a very confusing term.
Yeah.
Swachusas Vargana has been used in Bhagavati Sutra and other texts.
Yes.
Whereas the Gomatsar doesn't speak of Swachusas Vargana. Okay, it is a Vargana of different classification. So Swachosas Vargana is a very confusing term as far as I understand. It's a very confusing term. According to me, swas means two things. I
Yes.
mean, as far as living beings of our type or animals or even those animals who are breathing in air, okay? For them, swas means two things. One
Yes.
is taking in oxygen or air, another taking in tejas varga,
Yeah.
pran.
Yes.
Okay, so both processes are taking place simultaneously. In the case of Sukshma Nigodh Jeev, oxygen is not there, but tejas varga is being inhaled.
Okay. Okay. Because they have
Yes.
also not a nose or such kind of respirator
They don't
system
have a
like
body
us.
like this. They
Yeah.
don't have a body. Their entire existence is so sukshma, that you can't see them. We know the sukshma Nigodh only because it has been said by Keval Gyani. Otherwise, we do not know.
Yeah.
The sukshma Nigodh are not known to anybody, cannot be seen by anyone. And we know about them because it has been said by Keval Gyani. They
Correct.
are so subtle. So
So,
there is no question of taking in oxygen in that case. That is out of question.
yes, even two sense living beings cannot take that kind of oxygen.
Now, two sense beings start taking oxygen.
Uh, But they have no nose.
No, they have no nose, but see, that is nose is not necessary.
Okay.
We have a ahar of 3 types, as we know.
Yes.
Keval ahar, lom ahar, tej ahar.
Mm-hmm.
So oxygen can be taken even through the skin,
Yes.
as the fishes do. Fishes do.
Mm-hmm.
Fishes also know they need oxygen in water, If there is no oxygen in water, the fishes will die.
Okay.
So they also need oxygen. But how they inhale oxygen? It is through the body.
But they are developed, they are 5 sensed or 4 sensed
They are
like?
5 sense. They are 5
Yeah.
sense. They are
So
5
they
sense.
have
Yes.
already respiratory system, no?
They have a respiratory system, but the oxygen is being taken through the body also, as far as I know.
Yes.
They
Okay.
are they are 5 sense beings, of course.
So similarly, we cannot accept that the 1 sensed and 2 sensed living beings are also
Two
taking
sense, two sense beings,
very.
two sense beings, two sense beings do not have a nose.
But Rom Ahar can be possible in the case
Yes,
of the one
body,
sensed
body,
living beings.
through body. They can take oxygen through body.
Okay. So in one sense, living beings also it is possible.
No, one sense living beings are of 2 kinds, One is the Savar Jiva, the earth body, water body, and so on. Another is vegetation. Vegetation is again of Sukshma and Badar, So we are normally familiar with Badar,
Yes.
which can be seen. So the Badar type of oxygen, do not take oxygen, but they take carbon dioxide, as we all know now,
Mm-hmm.
and produce oxygen. So they take in carbon dioxide, and so for them, breathing is in the form of taking in carbon dioxide.
Correct. Yes. So they
In
are breathing.
biology,
They are breathing. No.
They are breathing carbon dioxide.
yeah,
They are taking.
in biology, in
Yes.
Yes,
biology also we have 2 types of bacteria, aerobic
yes,
bacteria and anaerobic bacteria.
yes.
So they can both survive in the
Both can survive. Both can survive. This is what I'm saying.
Yes.
It's possible. Even without oxygen,
Mm-hmm.
the smaller, the subtle beings can survive.
Then what is the meaning of saying that each and every living being, whether it is one sensed or subtle or bather or gross one, they must have this respiratory system, that is the
Ah,
Sasvachvas Paryapti.
prana and paryapti, prana. So they have the prana. That's what
Ahar,
I'm
Sharir,
saying.
Indriya, Swasvachvas Paryapti. Paryapti means a physical
Pary-
system must be there to breathe for them.
And that's what I'm saying. See, the prana also.
Yes.
Prana is developed because of paryapti. So paryapti is needed.
Yeah, it is true.
Pra- Prana capacity is developed only because of paryapti. They are interdependent, prana and paryapti. That there is a need to understand these 2 terms very clearly.
Clear.
What they are doing, how they are interdependent.
Yes.
So the prana can be developed when there is a paryapti, and paryapti can develop when there is a prana. Interdependent.
So, just my question is that there is also need of paryapti, no physical
There is
system.
a paryapti, there is a need. That's what I'm saying. The prana capacity developed because of paryapti.
Mm-hmm.
Both are necessary. Prana and paryapti, both are necessary.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much for answering.
Yeah.
If somebody else have any question, Bhatia has no question today. So thank you, Professor Kachhara ji, for delivering talk on this very scientific concept of evolution and from Jain perspective. So it makes a very sense that how we can understand these theories in the scientific, in the light of the scientific researches, and can see that what kind of contributions has been made by Jain Tirthankara sages and seers through these kind of concepts, and have presented very well the theory which we want to understand in the light of these modern scientific researches. And also we have so many questions, and that have been also been answered through these talk of Professor Kachhara. We can read it in detail from his text, and the lecture is also available on module of the course. So thank you for joining the session and coming. And again, I'm very much thankful to Professor Kachhara, Professor Jain, and Rakesh Jain. He is also doctor.
What I would like to say at the end is that, you please try to raise questions on what I have said, because that is the way we make progress.
Yes,
So you
that
must
is very
always,
important.
that is very important,
Correct.
So please try to raise questions and try to get answer yourself.
Yes.
That is the way we make it.
Priyanka also working in the field of science, scientific studies. So why
Yes,
she has not asked any question?
that's right. That's right. So please don't take for granted what I have said, try to really question them.
Yes.
Raise questions, and try to understand, yes, what I have said is correct or no.
Yeah, they can also make some comments if they.
Certainly,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
certainly, yes. And I would be very happy if somebody comes forward with a
Yes.
new idea.
Correct.
Professor, I have one question. Uh, Very good class. And one question. So, in like what you described, the time cycle and how the organisms are born according to Jain theory. So, can I say that this happens every Utsarpani, Avsarpani, this process starts again? Like now humans are evolved, and when the new time cycle will come, then this process will again start.
Uh, no, there is no direct correlation between Utsarpani, Navasarpani concept and evolution concept. Avasarpani and Utsarpani cycle goes on, is supposed to go on every planet. Okay, even in Jambu Dweep, it goes on, the cycle goes on. This is the way. So evolution is something different from this cycle. The time
Okay.
cycle, of course, describes how the conditions change on a particular planet. Of course, that also affects the living beings, as we know, and also affects the evolution process. Yes, but the two things are different, in fact. You cannot say, the time cycle goes on continuously, even on one planet.
Okay.
When the planet, when the planet was born, and thereafter, the question of this particular question has not been addressed in literature anywhere, that the planets are born. And they just describe that there is thing like Jambu Dweep or other dweeps and so on. And whether the Jambu Dweep is born at some time or produced or probably will not exist after some time, this question has not been raised anywhere in the literature.
No, I
They
mean
just
only on Earth. Only on Earth. I'm not talking about the other planets. Only on Earth, like because how you describe the organism evolved to human beings. So when the next time cycle will change, we say that it will be like the sixth, 5, 4, like so I mean, will this evolution theory, what you proposed, be valid in that also?
the evolutionist theory, of course, will be valid, but as I said, the time cycle can change even on a particular planet continuously. So it is not related with the formation or the birth of the planet, the life of the planet. It's not
Okay.
connected to that.
Thank you so much, Professor Ji.
So Nehaji, let me just put it into the two different perspective. One thing is whatever Professor Kachhara has just mentioned. He mentioned the different theories and how the ideas of those the evaluations is being presented in a scientific theories and in a manner by different researches. And evaluation is a continuous process. So that is means you can see generations by generations some changes, right? While in whatever we have in our Jain theories, those the time cycles is a conditional system. you will see means in a first era, what is this the condition, second era, what is this the conditions, and during that the time period, what are those the conditions you will be expected. So those are two different, and I will just simply say entirely two different way. One is, however, I will just put it in a simple manner. It is like what you do in a day-to-day life, right? And first one is a very high level glance level of how many lives has been just passed within 10,000 years or 5,000 years. It is something just to look it into a way, because one is keep continuous changing, and that is will be looking through this evolution theory, while in a time cycles. And another one means, you're just to answer your question once, they have mentioned in a Kal Chakra book, and there is a big research is already been done. So over that, there are certain numbers of those the pairs is been saved during that the end of those the time cycles, and then from that one, this the process again going to a continuations one. But yes, into that one, evaluation is been done, right? Means even though I'll just simply put it in another way. Once the 6 ara ends and that everything is going towards the destructions, and then the first ara will come. So whatever is the pair is being saved, from that the pairs, that the evaluations again will rise, and wherever it is been going to, even height and weight and whatever all other things up, so that the changes is adapting surroundings or environment. So one is our, while in our time cycles we focus on environment, and in evolution theories that's focusing on changes to adaptations of that the environment. I hope I make you something clear to you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you must keep in mind the evolution, which the scientists recover is something different, As I said here, the Jainism does not believe in evolution as such. There is no evolution. All kinds of life exist everywhere in the look always, So it's only question of production of a particular kind of yoni, so that a jeev can take birth there, So as the time cycle goes on, the environment conditions are changing, as the Suril has said, and you might have some different kind of yonis. The size of the yoni might different, and as the different human beings are going to be smaller and smaller, in the next era and so on. So there can be variations in that, but nothing new is produced. Nothing
Thank
new
you,
is.
Professor. Yeah.
So thank you for all, and Professor Kachhara especially.
समझ जी आपसे कुछ बात करनी थी मुझे बात
Yes. Okay, so everybody can leave because the class is over. Okay, so if you want to talk, this you can say, or we can talk on a mobile.
No, it's all right. समझ जी ये जो बुक आई है
Vanda,
अपने
let me end this the meeting, okay? And then after I will again start it, so you guys can join. It's not an issue, but let's end this one for a recording purpose.